What are teens today not ready to hear?
Story 1. In the adult world, getting into fights doesn't make you look cool, it just makes you look stupid. And one wrong fight can leave you brain damaged or on trial for manslaughter. I know someone who was drunk and another much drunker guy came up to them looking for a fight. Long story short, the guy defended himself. The aggressive man had an undiagnosed tumor in his brain which ruptured and he died. Now this guy has to live with this for the rest of his life due to someone being idiotic. Luckily, they got off with no jail time as it was self-defense, and they were both drunk and obviously undiagnosed. But I think the mental damage of having killed someone accidentally is punishment enough. I wonder if the brain tumor could have been part of the reason he was being so weirdly aggressive. Could have been totally unrelated, but those things can totally mess with your personality. Very sad story. Poor guy defending himself didn't ask for that. It 100% changes you. Living in constant pain, whether or not you recognize it's there, will make you a very angry, sad, bitter person. I was in chronic body pain for a long time from many injuries. Constant scrutinizing pain. Went on an acid trip and I felt my body without pain for the first time in a long time. I've been chasing that ever since through yoga, mobility, meditative techniques. I feel more aggressive and hostile when the pain level goes up. I get very easily irritated. I was about to say that this kind of got a little off topic from, just giving teenagers some advice that they need to hear or whatever, but no, teenagers, you probably needed to hear all of that because a lot of that too is just connected with growing up. It's tough and getting into fights and having to live with what you've done in your life, it can add up and you don't want to do that. So avoid making those mistakes. Try to avoid fights if you can. Story 2. Just because it's new to you doesn't mean it's new. I majored in literature in college, I teach now, and I remember 18 to 21-year-old me being fascinated by how human nature stayed the same from hundreds of years ago. At that age, I couldn't fathom that those old people actually made intercourse jokes or had certain technologies. Reading across the ages really made me wiser and hip to the fact that humans are basically all the same. We just have different settings we grow up in. Same thing across country/cultural lines. I remember when I traveled to India and the culture shock was super jarring. Felt like I had teleported to a different universe. Then when we were driving around Agra, I saw a group of teenage boys cracking up and pointing. Those efforts had drawn the most glorious, veiniest D that I'd ever seen on the wall in chalk. Doesn't matter if you live in India, Germany, Egypt, or the USA, everyone draws and laughs at D's. Laugh my butt off. The great unifier. One of the more embarrassing things you realize as your perspective widens in college is how often adults were just humoring you as you explained things about the world as though they hadn't been common knowledge for half a century. I think the lesson that you should really learn here, teens, and a lesson that should stay with you even when you're an adult, is you're always going to be learning new things and realizing that the you from however many years ago didn't know nearly as much as they thought they knew. So as much as we adults might say, you're a teenager, you don't understand it yet, you don't know, but you will. Same for me. I am over twice your age, no matter what kind of teenager you are at this point, I think. And in 5-10 years, I will look back at me now and be like, the things I didn't know. So, don't sweat it.
Story 3. As you get older, you just keep realizing how dumb you were last year. Every day I realize how stupid I was the day before. I'm a teen, and it's honestly incredibly satisfying looking back at how much of an idiot I was because I know that feeling that way about my past self means I've grown. I'm 27 now, and every year or two I'm just shocked at how ignorant I was, and I'm reminded that I'm still ignorant as F and need to remain curious, challenging myself, changing my beliefs. My parents did none of those things, experienced no meaningful paradigm shifts, have had the same beliefs for decades on end, and they're pretty abhorrent people. So while sometimes it feels bad man.jpg to remember I was and always will be ignorant, it's also reassuring because it means I'm doing something right, like you said. 36 here. The best piece of advice I ever tell all the young crowd is we don't have a damn clue what we're doing. There aren't any instructions, no instinctual takeover. The most you get is you get a lot of practice at having the mindset of, F it, we'll do it live, every day of your life. Story 4. The older you get, the faster it goes. Yesterday, I was you. Tomorrow, you'll be me. One day, you'll wake up and wonder where that plenty of time to do X went. It will scare the crap out of you. Pink Floyd said it perfectly. Tired of lying in the sunshine, staying home to watch the rain. You are young and life is long, and there is time to kill today. And then one day, you find 10 years have got behind you. No one told you when to run. You missed the starting gun. Yep, when you're 14, 7 years is an eternity because it's half of your life. That is not the case when you are 40 and almost lived 7 years 6 times over. It's been 4 years since I left my last relationship, and it feels like yesterday. I haven't dated or had intercourse in that time, and it doesn't even feel like a problem. I'm still like, oh, I just got out of a relationship. Not ready yet. I found making new experiences slows life down. Taking trips, going camping, hiking trails, attending festivals, and having fewer events you can't wait for help. What I mean by that is having few faraway events you constantly and intensely look forward to. There's a few tricks to achieve this, in my opinion. Stay busy. If you want to plan a big trip far from now, do so. However, plan trips, events, or other things to occupy your anticipation. The goal is to slow your perception of time by focusing on the now rather than the future.
All of this is very true. Life will really start to fly by if you're not careful. The older you get, I remember as a kid, a year seemed to take forever. And nowadays, I'm 39. I will be 40 in a day, literally. And I'm a year past, 2 years past, it feels like no time whatsoever unless you're doing stuff. Keep yourself active. Don't just rest on your laurels. And sure, take breaks. Take time to relax and enjoy life, Don't stress yourself out, but yeah, give yourself experiences. Don't lose that because, man, I've seen some older people who just retire and do nothing, and you can see them wrinkling and turning to dust in real time.
Story 5. You're closer to being the oldest person in any given setting than you think. And by old, I mean 30. Got nieces and nephews just starting kindergarten? Blink, and they're starting college. Agreed. We're having my mother's memorial this coming weekend, and it keeps striking me as bizarre that we are now the adults. We went from 14 to 45 in the blink of an eye, it seems. Same. My dad passed away a few weeks ago, and we just had his memorial. Seeing his friends and people he worked with that I haven't seen in 30 years just hit me in the face how old I am now. I'm 31 and realizing I'm at the point now where I'm really losing people. My 29-year-old sister died 2 weeks ago, and both my parents are not in great health, and that sure didn't help it. As older relatives pass away, the extended family becomes segmented and caught up in their own more immediate families. Things are becoming lonelier. Edit. Thanks everyone for the kind words. I'm convinced my cousin is still 8 years old. Admittedly, that's unlikely as she's recently gotten a degree in astrophysics. But I don't live with her or anything. Maybe she's just a really smart kid? Story 6. Being controversial isn't the same as being interesting. Contrarianism isn't wisdom. Oh, and you're gonna wish you learned not to be a D. Turns out social skills are useful post-college.
I'm sorry, is this supposed to be advice for teenagers or just advice for people who are chronically online? Because, let me tell you, this is not something I'm pointing a finger at teenagers for, because I've seen many more adults online who have a problem with this, myself at sometimes included.
Story 7. Putting every aspect of yourself online is unsafe. Nobody needs to know your list of triggers or your address or your blood type. So many teens have their location data available on Snapchat for all their Snapchat friends to see just 'cause. I would never show my real-time location data to all my Facebook friends, so why do so many people do it with Snapchat eludes me. So many people on those contact lists you just casually know, and they're not actually friends, so they don't need to know my location. It's creepy as F in my opinion. Story 8. One day you too will be old and uncool, and it'll happen faster than you think. I used to be with it, then they changed what it was, and what is now it is weird and scary. It will happen to you. Abe Simpson, more or less. So I tied an onion to my belt, which was the style at the time. Now to take the ferry costs a nickel, and in those days, nickels had pictures of bumblebees on them. Give me 5 B's for a quarter, you'd say. Now where were we? Oh yeah, the important thing was that I had an onion on my belt, which was the style at the time. They didn't have white onions because of the war. The only thing you could get were the big yellow ones. When I was like 25 and my stepbrother chuckled at me and said nobody says stoked anymore, I had the moment for the first time. The moments have only increased since.
All right, Mr. Facts story time. Because I had this moment, and I had this moment when I was in my earlier 30s. I was working at a job, and I had a younger coworker who was 18 or 19 at the time. And he referred to something as on fleek. So that already dates how long ago this was, I'm sure, for some of you. And he said that, and I said, well, what the heck does on fleek mean? And I genuinely didn't know. And my reaction was genuinely like that irritated. Just like, what the hell does on fleek mean? And he said, well, it means like, like fashionable or on point. And not even trying to be ironic, not trying to be a curmudgeonly old man, I literally got upset and went, well, why the hell wouldn't you just say that? And he stared at me and went, dude, how old are you? And I wanted to weep.
Story 9. You won't feel different when you're older or have kids. You'll just be you. It's weird. Life as a continued experience is weird. When I was much younger, I would always think about all the ways I'd be different when I was older, but I'm still just me. Somewhat wiser and taller, but still the same me I've always been. It's strange, but I think I've enjoyed getting older and growing to know myself better. I'm nearing 30, and I still look for adults when something goes wrong, LOL. Story 10. Everything you do as a teenager will cringe to your children. Everything I did as a teenager is cringe to me, to be honest. I, teenager, cringe at myself as I do things. Story 11. Condoms are for STDs too, even though there are other ways to avoid pregnancy. I'll add that girls can feel just as awkward about using them as boys. Don't be shy and use one. Story 12. School has a system in place to keep you from falling behind. Life doesn't. Yep, life will run you over if you F around, and if ever you have your crap together, you could be one financial crisis away from losing it all. For effing sure, been run over so many times at this point I've proposed to the asphalt, but still no response. Edit. It's beyond depressing this is my most upvoted comment ever, but hey, que sera, sera, LOL. Even if it doesn't feel like it, your school wants you to succeed. Real life does not. Story 13. Those are probably not friends for life. Okay, slim chances for some. This hits too hard. Too hard. I lost contact with most of my school friends by now. I'm only 30. I'm 21 and only talk to one friend I had in high school still. Still got 2 day one homies from middle school some 20 years later, but the majority of the people you meet early on are insignificant.
Yeah, on one hand, most of the friends you have as a teenager, you won't have as an adult. Even one of my very, very best friends from like almost grade school on up through my 20s, we no longer hang out or really talk, and that's okay. People grow and change. But first off, you'll probably hang on to 1 or 2 really good friends. And I do still have one from high school. He is my best friend. We hang out constantly, and it's wonderful. And for the rest of the people, yeah, we went different ways, but you know what's great? You get to make new friends, and usually not just people who happen to be in your proximity, but people who share your interests and hobbies and stuff. You get friends that you get along with better. So if you spend all your time worrying about, the people that you are like desperately trying to hang on to the friendship, maybe it's best just to let it go and find even better friendships. It kind of sucks in the moment to think about, but it's true, I think.
Story 14. To the ones who ride the public bus in my city specifically, nobody else wants to hear whatever TikTok you're watching. Buy some headphones. My dad's a teenager? Anything less than 80% is not worth listening to. I figure kids nowadays have earbuds or some crap. If I'm going somewhere where I'm going to be on my phone or a handheld console like my DS or Switch, I always bring headphones. It's just disrespectful to blast your device's noise in public. Other people are on calls and or talking. Story 15. Not everybody can be an internet sensation. Somebody has to drive the dump truck. And sanitation is a pretty solid business, too. Yeah, don't believe the guidance counselor saying you have to go to college and then saying something like, you don't want to be a garbage man/plumber, do you? The garbage man and the plumber make bank with no student loan debt. Garbage man is a city job here that pays to start at $25 per hour and you get benefits and union membership. I'll gladly be an effing garbage man, LOL. Story 16. Please shower. Back in my day, you got roasted for being the stinky one. Story 17. That D-pic you sent got screenshotted and sent to 5 other people. And they're still saving your nudes even if you sent them on Snapchat and think they can't screenshot without your knowledge. They can. Take it from a millennial who knows from experience. Story 18. Just because you effed up does not mean you're an F-up. Building on this, everybody F's up royally at some point. A sign that you're in the right environment, whether that's personally or professionally, will be people forgiving and working with you to get better. Story 19. Social media is not reality, and your entire life should not revolve around it. I know some adults that need to hear this too. Also, mistakes or anything put on social media can certainly follow you along for the rest of your life.
You know, I've been seeing this for a while. Like, for the last 10 years, I see people say like, oh, your mistakes on social media, that's with you for the rest of your life. How do you know that? Social media has been around for what, maybe like 20 years now? Maybe a little bit more, I guess 25 years? Like, it hasn't been around long enough for us to know if it genuinely sticks with you. Now, granted, don't go making a bunch of big dumb mistakes on social media and ruining the next 5-10 years of your life. But also, don't let one mistake stick with you and color the rest of your life. You can make up for things. You can improve and get better. Or just, log off.
Story 20. Playing music on your speakers in public areas makes you look like a complete douchebag. Nobody likes it but you. The same applies to watching YouTube or TikTok in public spaces. Just get headphones. Also, no one else wants to listen to your FaceTime call. Remember when it was considered rude to take a phone call in public, and now we have TikTokers literally blocking traffic in the roads to film videos? Something about the internet being a private, public, semi-anonymous space where you're meant to take it everywhere and show off everything on it. I don't know. I feel like the internet really messed with the concept of public boundaries and politeness/decency in the past 15 to 20 years. Story 21. It is perfectly fine to not know something. It's okay to not know. Stop shaming and bullying people because you learned about something before they did. Social media is not the real world, and acting like it is will only make people not want to be around you. Edit, I'm not talking about ignorance. I'm talking about laughing when people ask a question in class. The "how do you not know that" crowd. The mocking of people into never asking another question out of fear of ridicule and humiliation. Tell that to the adults too. Yep, it perfectly fits the idea of being right because I've lived more. Many don't want to admit that they don't know everything, and from then on it's a vicious cycle of stubbornness and lack of knowledge. Story 22. We adults are mostly just winging it. Hopefully learning from the tons of mistakes we make, but still winging it. I have no idea where I read it, but I once read that a lady talking about her childhood, and she said something like, I didn't realize when I was little that I was witnessing my parents grow up. It stuck with me both as a parent and as a daughter. In hindsight, the best thing I did as a parent was wait until well into my 30s to have a kid. I think it's a good idea for people to sort their own lives out before bringing new ones into the world. Story 23. Drugs ain't a game. I was $100 a day crack W. 12 years sober. I want to scream at all the kids, don't do drugs. Being dope sick sucks. Being friends with a total loser just because they have crack will bring you down so fast. Sitting in the bathtub crying because you blew away 10 years of your life sucks. It's great you decided to get clean. I'm working on that myself. It's a hell of a struggle, but there is definitely light at the end of the tunnel always.
Seriously, folks, don't do drugs, especially as a teenager. Your brain pathways are still forming. You could make some addictions that are so much harder to deal with. And then if you do decide to experiment with legal substances, still be careful. Be cautious how you approach things, educate yourself. But just you don't want to ruin too much, because I've had some friends who they've come back from some bad drugs and bad addictions, and that is not an easy fight. And believe me, they would tell you it is not worth it at all.
Story 24. You didn't invent that style. Edit to say, thank you for the award. It's my first and means a lot. My high school age daughter and her entire school look just like my high school did in the mid-90s. They're even listening to the same music. Had a conversation with my 12-year-old niece last week about how she's in middle school and there are emos at her school. I told her that we had emos when I was in middle school too. I'm 30. Yeah, but emos are different now. Ours wear fishnet gloves. Yeah, so did ours. Well, did they wear their hair down over one eye? Yes. Well, did they wear chains and studded belt? Yes. Well, did they wear super heavy eyeliner and black nail? Yes. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.